Today is the first day in 11 lunar months that I'm not saying Kaddish for my father. For 11 months, the Kaddish has been a transitional object, as it were, weaning me from mourner to survivor. And I now find myself in the situation innumerable others have found themselves in before, and one to which my mother alluded at her father's unveiling as she ended her recitation of Kaddish for him. I'm transitioning from mourning my father by reciting the mourner's Kaddish to mourning the recitation of the mourner's Kaddish. Day after day, 3 times per day, the Kaddish has been with me when my father has not. At times, it numbed the reality, happily, to which I was forced to be sadly awake. And at times, it awakened me when I had become too numb to grief. At times, I mumbled it, sometimes getting to the end and wondering, did I just say Kaddish? And at times, the Kaddish was an invitation to memory, to reverie, to imagery. I would say the words and conjure his face. His 30-year-old face when we lived in Israel for a year. His 40-something-year-old face when I became bar mitzvah. His 50-something-year-old face at my wedding. His 60-something-year-old face at my girls' baby namings. His 70-something-year-old face when Lev was born. His 80-year-old face as cancer and a form of dementia battled him. And his peaceful face as his breath was no more and he went from body to spirit. I would say the words to try to remember what it was like to be hugged by him. I would say Yit Gadal v'Yit Kadash and try not to feel too guilty about the moments that popped in my mind where my voice could have been softer, my patience greater, my love more apparent. It's amazing how over it is when it is over. We say the bracha at every Amidah, blessing God who is Mechayeh HaMetim, who brings life to the dead. And we try to make sense of that blessing and lean into the metaphysical and the miraculous. But on some very real level, we know that confronting the end is confronting the end. And so Kaddish is a blankie. It's something to hold on to when we can no longer hold on to them. Kaddish is a nudge, pushing us into the next stage of life as we move away from the moment of death. Kaddish is an invitation to remember more actively, to face God more courageously and intimately, and perhaps to make the blessing about bringing life to the dead as real as it could be. How? By invoking them, telling stories about them, and bringing their values and their ideas to life, even as they slumber in death. And so that brings me to one of my father's most elemental Jewish beliefs. He was raised the son of a Reform rabbi, but my father, Dr. Michael Kligfeld, trained as a psychiatrist with an analytical bent, but he never tired of his yearning to know more about Judaism and our spiritual and intellectual tradition. In college, he was drawn towards the new movement of Reconstructionism and had the distinct honor of studying personally many times with its founder, Rabbi Mordechai Kaplan, the former Orthodox rabbi. Some of my father's Reconstructionism was subtle. Some of it stood out. For decades, he was the high holiday chazan at a Reconstructionist synagogue on Long Island. And it was going to those services with him and my family that exposed me to perhaps the primary, at least initially, the primary liturgical change one confronts in a Reconstructionist service. A change that is very much connected to Parshat Lech Lecha. Mordechai Kaplan loved the Jewish tradition and was a scholar and a master of it. He thought that formal inherited halakha Jewish law ought to have a vote when it comes to Jewish practice, but not a veto. And he struggled with, he even abhorred the notion of chosen-ness. He thought it was jingoistic, tinged with superiority. And so he changed one of the fundamental lines of Jewish worship. When one took then and still takes now an aliyah at a reconstruction of synagogue, one does not say, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, praising God for choosing us amongst all the other nations. Rather, one says, Asher kervanu lavodato, referring to God who brought us close to worshiping, to serving God. In some ways, that change is very transgressive. And if you haven't heard it before, it's strange the first time you do, because it modifies some of the most beloved, well-known, and ubiquitous of all Jewish lines of prayer. But in some ways, the change is very traditional, because it brings us back to Sinai, with God inviting us into relationship, a relationship of service and worship, rather than identifying us as having a singular and elite excellence. What might make us excellent and elite and worthy of being chosen if God were to choose? That we draw close to God, that we worship God, that we put God in the center of our existence, rather than saying words that might seem that we and only we are in the center of God's existence. Now, I've never said those words when taking an aliyah. And part of me bristled even when I was a child, when I would observe them at that reconstruction of the synagogue. I was once asked directly if those words were a permitted option when taking an aliyah at Temple Beth Am. And I said no. Our liturgy would remain traditionally traditional in that way. I don't think that ruling or policy is going to change soon. But I also feel a filial obligation to explore my father's perspective and to try to illuminate myself with his understanding of truth. And Parshat Lech Lecha helps me. God says to Abraham to go, leave, to travel from the nondescript Haran, which is geographically likely in modern-day Syria, and head to the navel of reality, the land of Canaan, which would become Israel. And the fundamental Lech Lecha question is why? As Ashira already taught in her drash, what was it about Abraham, who was still Avram at the time, that has God speak to him and not to anyone else? Who is he? And what did he do? And what was his character, such that seemingly out of nowhere, Avram is spoken to and commanded and selected and chosen, if you will? Ashira shared that beloved midrash that sees Avram as having been the first one with theological curiosity. Someone must have turned on the light initially. Or in another way of understanding the midrash, someone must be in charge of this burning mess of a world. Because Avram looked and he peered and he queried and he sought out ultimate answers and origins and responsibility, God said, "It is I. I'm in charge. Be in relationship with me." The next midrash in the traditional collection reads the story differently. This midrash likens Avram to a flask of fragrant oil. Inside is a beautiful bouquet of odors, but the flask is stopped up and is discarded in some forgotten corner, so its beauty is contained and does not spread. The command of Lech Lecha was God's way of saying to Avram, take the top off the flask and roam around. What happens when you remove the cover from a bottle of perfume and walk around with it? All the air around becomes sweeter. The more you walk with it, the more the sweetness radiates. Lech Lecha, Avram. You have beauty inside of you, curiosity and wonder. But if you stay here, if you reject the relationship with me, the creator of all, you'll be like a tree falling in a forest that no one heard or saw. You'll make no impression. Your curiosity will be towards no meaningful end. The project of your life will end at the last breath, and you'll be defunct forever. But if you go on a journey in my name, everyone around you will sense it, will sense you, will know me through you. Lech lecha. This version of the story does not read Avram as particularly exceptional. It's as if God could have said this and does say this to every person. You have infinite amounts of me, of divinity, of wonder inside you, but you need a path, a form, a structure, a way of being in order to extract it, to give it air and life. Follow me, and together we will make the world be and make the world smell more beautiful. I have no idea if my father knew that midrash, but he lived it. And had he known it, he would have liked it. He would have liked the image of God having tapped Avram and all of us on the shoulder and saying, go be and do something beautiful. You have no exceptionalism as is, but the grandeur of your journey and those you impact will determine how worthy you might be of being remembered, of being chosen among all the anonymous people who have ever lived to be remembered. That notion of chosenness might have resonated with my father. I, God, don't choose you because you are something special. I choose you so that you become something special. The great Maharal of Prague was associated with the fable of the golem, wonders why nothing about Avram's character is shared with us before Lech Lecha, whereas the Torah specifies that Noach was saved from the flood because he was Ish Tzaddik, he was a righteous person. Again, why Avram? Who was he that he was God's partner? The Maharal answers that if Avram had been chosen by God because of some character trait he already had, we might assume that as long as the Jewish people perpetuate that trait, the relationship with God's intact. And if we lose it, God will get lost. God will sever the bond. But that's not the case. It's unconditional. Our bond with God is eternal and does not depend on any one particular thing. We did not earn chosenness because we were extraordinary. The selection, the election of Avram and his descendants remains in the Maharal's words, Ta'alumat Hashem, the hidden enigma of God. The only thing that is knowable is what we can do, what we must do to continue to earn and re-earn the favor, the relationship, the title Israel that was already bestowed. And that is to study the tradition, to walk humbly with the Holy One, to use religion and Torah to bring people together and not to divide, to remain as curious as perhaps our original ancestor was, to act in such a way that if God did choose people, God might choose us. Abba, I am listening. Abba, I am learning. Abba, let my life be partially dedicated to roaming around this world with the bottle of your fragrance. Abba, I'm not changing that bracha, but I'm leaning into why you struggled with it. Abba, I'm no longer reciting the Kaddish. Abba, I'm in a new stage of mourning you. Abba, I miss you. Abba, I remember you. Abba, whoever God does or does not choose, for the rest of my life, I will be grateful for your choice to bring me into life, for giving me your name, and the blessing and the holy burden of burnishing your legacy. Abba, I love you.